Victoria to Edmonton and then out to Ottawa, Ontario. Yeah, it was definitely quite a journey. A little bit of a layover time in Edmonton on the way out, and we're going to talk more about the journey debriefing today on how it all went. So stay tuned. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to PWD Allies podcast. My name is Brent Frayne. I'm the host. Today, we're going to talk about debriefing of the trip that Sonjia, Jeff, and myself went to Ottawa, Ontario, to the Parliament Hill. So the journey begins from Victoria, BC, where we started from, on the west coast, all the way to Ottawa, Ontario, to the capital of Ontario. And so we left very bright and early, just before 7 o'clock in the morning. And we went out to Victoria Airport, and we waited and waited and waited and waited for the plane to take off. And we found that there was some delays. Eventually, we did take off, and then we got to Edmonton, and we had a little bit of a layover. Not a lot. The flight went smoothly, but because of the layover time, we actually had some vouchers that were given to us from the airline, which was really nice. Complimentary vouchers for saying sorry for the delay, sorry for the inconvenience. So that came in handy, and so we bought some dinner at the airport, and so out to Ottawa we went, and we got there.
How about a complimentary voucher for a free flight to Hawaii, Brent?
Well, that would be
Did
wonderful.
they offer that?
No. I was really thinking that maybe that might have been an option. Maybe that might have just as an extra bonus. we got there. We actually got there quite late compared to what we had figured. Because our game plan was to go to the grocery store and pick up some stuff for the morning. Unfortunately, we got to the airport on 10 o'clock at night. So or just before 10, by the time we actually went through and got our luggage and got out toward the airport. And we weren't able to accomplish that. But it all worked out, like, in the end. So we got to our accommodation. And then the next day, we definitely... we went to the hill and saw basically all the touristy stuff too while we were on our journey. We had a gathering at Parliament Hill, which was wonderful. Small group of people. It wasn't a large group, but people were coming in little groups at a time and coming by and in solidarity, wanted to know what we were doing. Some of the individuals that already were there already knew because of our advertising that we've done to end legislated poverty for disabled Canadians. I mean, as I always say, nobody should be living in legislated poverty in Canada. I mean, we live in a wealthy country. So hearing people's feedback of what they go through on a day-to-day basis, I mean, the stories that people were sharing with us was wonderful to hear their stories, because that's what it's about. It's about networking with people and hearing what they have to say and what do they want to see changed to going forward. And unfortunately, there was no politicians showed up. I mean, no surprise, because Parliament was probed and still is until they find a new leader. And who knows what's going to happen after that.
That is too bad, though, because I know Jeff did do quite a bit of legwork to invite a few media there, and so it's too bad that the media didn't show up for that. I mean, you can kind of understand it because like you said, that you were there for the first time. You'd never been to Ottawa, and
No.
especially in winter. And you were saying, even the locals were saying, man, it's cold out. So even if the locals of Ottawa were saying, man, it's really cold.
Oh yeah.
You
We
know
heard
it's
that
cold
coming
when, right?
when we got there. I mean, we noticed a huge temperature change when we got off the plane, and like, whoa, this is chilly. You could feel the coldness, and we were dressed appropriately for the weather conditions well in advance. We planned for it, but I mean, it's a change in the temperature from the west coast from what we're used to here. It's more of a damp cold, and it just goes right through you there. It's more of a dry cold, and so anything that's exposed, your face, your ears, your mouth, etc., etc. And you're wearing these good thick gloves, but you can still feel that coldness even going through your gloves too at times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to hold doing the filming, I mean, oh wow, you're trying to press any buttons, so you take your gloves off and press this, and put them like, whoa. I did a wonderful job, but I want to thank Sonjia very, very much for doing a lot of the filming also. A really strong gratitude for that. She did an amazing job on the filming for me in different shots that I was walking along, and I sat on this little swing, and I thought, wow, this would be cool. So I sat down and I'm like, whoa, man, that is cold. So it's just a quick little video clip of that. So the journey began when we got there, meeting with people, just like I say, talk about their shared stories. There was a Newfoundland dog that was there, and Sonjia, what was the name of the dog?
Bjorn.
Bjorn. Yeah, Bjorn.
Oh, that was such a nice.
Yeah, such a beautiful dog. Yeah. If you can hear Sonja's voice in the background,
I love that dog.
She'll basically say a little bit about the dog. What was it, Sonjia, that you heard?
What about
About
I think
the
it's
dog?
got an Instagram page. Jordan on Instagram. Was it?
Wow.
Jeff would know about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can follow the dog on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We'll follow up with Jeff on that part of the story. Definitely, Matthew
The dog was nice and
had reached out
fluffy and soft
and came there too.
so friendly dog. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a gentleman named Matthew. He
had a nice dog there too.
Yeah, his dog was awesome, and he showed up and he had reached out to me and said that he's going to be wanting to come by, and so I read his email, and I forwarded on to you, Neil, and to Jeff, and Jeff was then in correspondence with him and made the arrangements. So he was really happy to actually meet me in person.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked a lot about advocacy stuff. We talked about basically what people go through, like in their living arrangements. That, and you know why? It's like deja vu. It's like what goes on in BC. Same thing. The nightmares of precarious housing that people are going through, and that's what stood out to me a lot in the conversations. And the Prime Minister, his office was just right across from where we were. So we did some filming right around there, and but of course he didn't come out to join us and say hi, and as an ally, just being there saying, thank you for making the trip from British Columbia all the way to Ottawa. I mean, we were there, and it was disappointing. I mean, I must say, that no politicians that were maybe there locally would come out and at least just say hi. I mean, they didn't have to. I mean, but it would have been nice. I mean, especially some of the reporters too. I mean, we reached out to them and covering the story about lived experience, what people with disabilities go through on a day-to-day basis, and covering the story and letting our voices be heard. I mean, don't be scared, media. Don't be scared about carrying the voices going forward. And that's, I want that to be not really a lesson to be learned, but just something to basically tell people that it's okay to talk about, lived experience stories. I mean, that's how the general public get to hear what people go through on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you can be born with a disability, and as we get older, as we age, and we get more disabilities. I mean, you can get to an accident and become disabled, nobody's going to be protected in a way where they're not going to be invincible and not getting a disability.
Mm-hmm.
And so having our stories heard, I mean, it was so important that, having media there, but it is what it is. Maybe next time.
It's good
Uh,
that you had people show up though and
oh yeah,
voice their
absolutely.
support.
It was really heartwarming that people in the community that were around, and they saw the banner and they walked up and they thanked us very much for for advocating and holding the politicians to account and letting our voices shine and be heard. And so I want to thank each and every one of the people who did come by, and also to fellow disability advocates who did come by too. Thank you on that note. And I want to thank Jeff also very, very much for organizing this event. Without Jeff organizing and with the help of Sonjia and myself, this event wouldn't have been possible to achieve. I do know that Jeff plans on doing another event in the very near future. I don't know exactly when, but we are going to be heading out to Ottawa again. So just a heads up to the media, Jeff will be reaching out to each and every one of you that he did reach out before, and to the politicians. Hopefully that they will be in session by then or thereabouts. So we welcome you to come as an ally and just stand in solidarity with us and achieve that nobody should be living less than poverty level financial support in Canada. And Jeff is from the Disability Action of Canada. He's the organizer for that. And so, like I say, thanks, Jeff. On doing this. Jeff and Sonjia and myself, we all had a wonderful time though. We basically made it more of a tourist type of theme too at the same time.
Yeah.
And we got warmed up because it was getting cold out there, right? We were holding the banner.
Well, I mean, for people that don't know, you did release, there was 3 videos, kind of vlogs.
Mhm.
I think people that are new to the channel kind of only know you from the podcast, but
Yeah.
you've done a lot of Breaking with Brents and things like that, which are kind of like on the street kind of
Yep.
videos. And then you've done a lot of travel vlogs. Originally, I put these 3 vlogs with Breaking with Brent, and I've decided I'm going to switch it over to your Brent and Sonjia travel vlog one because it was more of a fit. So I actually moved them from Breaking with Brent playlist to the Brent and Sonjia travel vlog playlist. It made more sense there. So if anybody wants to check out your journey, the actual vlog, I have fun putting it together, and I know you have fun filming it. And I know. I know Sonjia does too. But, so
the part that really stood out to me, and I didn't hear it back. I was having the recording going and traveling through the city core. There was a area of the city core, and just before I got onto the swing, so I'm recording the footage around these buildings, and these buildings were just amazing. I mean, the historic feeling of the building, that you could just pick up on the vibes of these buildings when they were built. I mean, probably over 100 years old, some of them, and the sound echoed, and I didn't realize the sound had echoed off the buildings there. It was the one area. And
there's a post office.
There was a post office just down from where I was standing initially, just before I got onto the swing. And then I filmed up the old post office where it was. And then, of course, the smaller version of the post office where we went into to go and get some stamps and then get some cards to mail out. And so we played back the video. I played back a little clip of it, and I hear, well, my voice is echoing. I'm going, oh, this is neat. And I guess it must have picked up the audio must have picked up off the buildings, and it made it echo.
Kind of bouncing off the side of the building.
Yeah, I've never had that happen before. Yeah. It almost sounded like I was in a I don't know, in some kind of hockey event or.
What else it could have been? It could have been perhaps the coldness too.
Oh, maybe yes,
Maybe
yes.
maybe the mics didn't like how cold it was.
Oh yeah. Well,
Uh,
it was
Possible.
minus 21 degrees out.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's a lot.
and
There's a lot of electronic equipment that doesn't do well in minus 21 degrees.
yeah, yeah. Well,
So
I know
that could have been. Um,
my phone was pretty cold at the time. Let's put it that
yeah.
way.
What I was gonna say quickly, Brent, if I appear distracted, it's because I've been trying to log into the chat on my computer, and again, it's being difficult. So I'm not able to access the chat on my computer, but I'm following it along a little bit on my phone here.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, it's not behaving properly. So I'm gonna do my best to, if anybody has a question. I've
Yeah,
following along on my phone, but I'm not able to see it on the computer.
yeah.
It's
Definitely send in your comments if you're watching this
mm,
live, or even after when it's not broadcasted live. Send in your comments. I mean, I had a wonderful just just experience filming it all as we were going through the journey. Um, Jeff had gone into a coffee shop. He was cold. He wanted to warm up on there, and we had gone in to get some postcards and just get warmed up too. And
yeah.
basically, I want to do a lot more filming. On my next journey, when I do make it out to Ottawa, I'm going to do a little bit more filming too of some of the stuff that I didn't get a chance to see. We did get to cover a lot in a short period of time that we were there. Um, yeah, I mean, and of course the journey through the airport. Well, that was a journey in itself too. Wow. I'll
Mhm.
debrief on that part, but then I'll get back to the Ottawa. But just to kind of let people know how our experience was going through the airport. Wow, from one part of the airport all the way to the other section of the airport, walking escalators. Now that was so cool. And they have these little arrows pointing toward the escalator. So as soon as you go toward it, so I'm filming down, and because I thought this is so neat, so I'm filming down these arrows and poof on the escalator. Then I filmed a little bit on and then off again. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
bang bang.
Yeah.
And there was several escalators that we were going through, and I can see why, because it's such a distance to travel. It took us like 20 minutes to walk from one part of the airport to the other part, and then to make your connecting flight.
Hmm.
Now, here's the stressful part. Sonjia and Jeff were just booting along, and I'm filming this, and I caught up to them then because I was trying to get some of the signage basically filmed there too. And Jeff was like, "Oh no, no, no! We've only got 7 minutes. Oh geez, oh no!" And imagine that to the flight goes. Well, what happened was they actually changed the airline changed the itinerary on there, where now we were delayed. Like the flight was actually delayed leaving, and we didn't know that, and they changed the gate number.
Mm.
And yeah, so we get down, and then we find that we had like another hour to wait after all that. After after we had to rush all the way down. Um, yeah, so then we finally boarded, and the airline gave us lots of snacks and beverages, which was so cool. Was it 34,000 feet up to 40,000 feet? We went up and away, and the timing to Calgary was actually pretty good. How long did we have, Sonjia, in Calgary?
Mm,
I guess about an hour or
something
just
like
over an
that.
hour. Yeah, so it wasn't too bad. Yeah, so yeah, the timing went really well. It was cold. It was very very cold indeed. It was even colder in Calgary when we initially got through, and then it warmed up, and then the temperature dropped off again. And then
Hmm.
out to Victoria, we came in
An hour and 14
yeah,
minutes.
hour and 14 minutes, but then the flight ended up being a little bit longer. The airline wasn't able to land right away due to a lot of fog. So it circled around and then went back toward Vancouver again and then back toward Victoria. Like it was looping around. You could see just down below, you could actually see the water down there. And it was like within a few minutes, like the airline whoop was now back in Vancouver and then back to Victoria. Wow, this is fast. Imagine taking a ferry; it takes like an hour and 35 minutes, but the
Yeah.
airline was within like 5 minutes, so right in Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was nice. The scenery. I took the beautiful pictures of us crossing over, overlooking the clouds down below us, and
Hmm.
yeah, it was quite the experience because I have never traveled to Ottawa before, so that was my first time taking the airline across Canada that way. So that was nice, and my ears were popping too. It took quite a while for my ears to finally unclog, like till like late last night, till we got back, and Sonjia would say something, I said, what? Like it was all clogged up, and it was like just popping, right? So it was just because of the altitude that we climbed to. It was quite high, but I understand. My phone kept pinging me, telling me, do you have a U.S. plan? It says, consider, logging into like a U.S. plan. I'm like, what is this? So we had, I guess, gone through the U.S. on the way there and on the way back. I was all worried, so I had to phone my service provider, and they said, no, don't worry, it's all fine. Yeah, you're not billed. Oh, okay. It's just automatically, by default, they automatically send out text messages.
Well, I guess when you're up so high, right? Maybe that can throw it off, right?
It's just because they went down and toward the U.S. They actually, the airline had made a diversion down through the jet stream, I guess, because of the active weather. There was a lot of storms going across Canada at the time, a lot of winter storms, but of course we didn't know what was going on. So it was nice. We got dropped off in Sydney. We decided to get dropped off there, and we took the bus all the way to downtown Victoria and had a little bite to eat in Sydney, and because we were hungry. So as soon as we left at, we got up at 3:00 in the morning, and our flight left at 6:15. We had to go through through security there at the airport. And every time you turn around, you got to show your ID, your boarding pass, boarding pass. Very tight security in there. I mean, that's great,
Which is good,
Yeah. And so we had gone through there and take off your belt, and I almost forgot to take off my belt, and got put everything, sir, into this container. So I took it off, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I'm forgetting something. And then on my belt. So I had to go and get the belt from them, and they didn't make you take your shoes off or anything, because you walk through this scanning device too, and it picks up on anything. So
well, I remember, going through with crutches, of course, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna like set that thing off.
Oh yeah.
And so they would like give me the wand treatment, and like because it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
You're smuggling something, we know. So yeah. But
well, what Sonjia has to go through a scanning device, because I mean, that's just what she's got to do on that. But it's some people go through just a normal walkthrough, and other ones have to go through scanning things, and it worked out good for her. And then Jeff's just waiting for us while we were going through all that stuff, and then we made our journey through, and there was a long lineup at Tim Hortons in the morning. Oh wow, there was over 100 people lined up at this Tim Hortons in the airport, and one lady working. One lady working?
Oh, wow.
100 people lined up. I felt so bad for her, and then a customer spilt her coffee on the ground. It was all over the place, and they wanted to clean up, and she said, no, it's okay. So she gets a wet floor signed out and comes along and puts it there. And
of course, Jeff would have been on the podcast again today, but he had his own coffee issues.
Yeah. Yes.
We won't go into graphic detail, but he had some bad coffee, and it caused him stomach upset. So
he posted onto Facebook his experience, and we had gone to Tim Hortons, but he had gone to a gift shop, and he basically got us some coffee. And we were in the lineup at Tim Hortons, and I didn't realize, and Sonjia didn't realize, that it wasn't a full service Tim Hortons. It was just coffee and donuts, but no breakfast items. So he had gone through. He had gone through to another gift shop and got some coffee. He says, I've got some coffee. Oh, okay, we're sitting in Tim Hortons lineup way back there. And he says, I'll find a seat and just, send me a text. And so I said to him, okay, so I don't know if they have breakfast here. Did you want something a breakfast item? He says, no, I'm good. He says, my tummy's just not agreeing with me right now. Oh, okay, no problem. And so I picked up some muffins, and one muffin each. Jeff, he couldn't even have a muffin. So long story short, we got through there, and he had milk in his coffee, and we had cream in our coffee. And so we met up and we continued on to the airport. We'd gone through, say, from Ottawa to Calgary, and it was Jeff managed to get through that fine. It was to the tail end when we got to Calgary, and I guess like you mentioned, Jeff's tummy wasn't doing too well, and we were getting ready to take off. The plane taxied its way down the runway and circled around the airport, I guess on the voyage that it has to do, and down one way and et cetera, et cetera. And so we were right at the end of the runway, and the engine of the plane was revved right up there, Neil. It was just vroom. As people know, if you've taken a flight, the pilot has got the plane in gear, ready to go, and the engine, you could hear it revving right up there, and then all of a sudden you hear it, and all of a sudden, boom, the plane just shuts off, and we're sitting at the end of the runway, like I guess idle, or not, maybe not shut off, but sitting idle. And I thought, well, what is going on? And I looked at Sonjia, and she looked at me, and she goes, I think they're dealing with Jeff right now, because Jeff had actually disappeared from the seat where we're sitting at, and he had taken off back toward the washroom. And then another gentleman came and sat down beside us, and he says, I'm going to be sitting here, and Jeff's going to be sitting in the back toward the washroom for the rest of the journey. Oh no. Yeah, no, it's fine. They get well taken care of. Meanwhile, the plane is still sitting at the end of the runway. I guess it was like about 20 minutes we sat there, and the plane wouldn't go. So I'm guessing the attendants must have radioed the pilot and let him know what was going on. And so the plane de-escalated itself down. 20 minutes later, you hear us ding, ding, all of a sudden, and then the plane starts moving, and then up like this. It was just went up on an angle, like straight up.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. And I actually, that's when I called you. I think I had called you. Yeah. And I said, oh, I gotta go, because they had just made an announcement telling everyone, okay, please put your phone into airplane mode. Well, I hadn't done that yet. I thought, no, I had put my phone in airplane mode. And I was on the phone. They're like, yeah, so all the transmission will cut out. I guess, probably not instantly, but pretty quick. Meanwhile, I was more worried about Jeff at the time. I'm thinking, I hope he's okay. I thought, first thing that came to my mind, everyone, was, oh boy, okay, I can see they're now going to disembark everybody. We're going to go back to the airport. We're going to disembark everybody off the plane, and now we're going to have to wait for another flight. But he didn't get to that. I knew it wasn't, and I felt bad for Jeff. It was the milk. It just didn't agree with him on the coffee. Yeah, I won't get into graphic because Jeff, he'll talk more about it. It was
at some point.
He laughed. He laughed about it now. It was the milk. It was the milk.
I can relate because that I have stomach issues now that I'm older. My stomach is really sensitive to a lot of things now. And I have to be really careful.
Well, there was a gentleman that was sitting in front of us too, and an older gentleman, and I didn't know what was going on. I just from where I was sitting, I just kept seeing the gentleman kind of slouching forward, but there was people sitting beside him. And they looked very concerned, and people sitting on the other aisle, sitting beside the gentleman, they were really concerned, and he was kind of start leaning over, like he then started kind of slouching over back and forth, and he was having the low blood pressure. Low blood pressure is what happened for him. And so they had to quickly take care of him, moved him to another area, oxygen and everything else, and. Yeah, it was, it can happen, right? Things like that do happen. And we just have to kind of work with it. And he the best way we can. And, they're all trained with first aid, and they know how to deal with the situation. And he got lots of care that was given to him also, and which is great, So, hands up to the airline, WestJet. For taking care of the passengers, Jeff, and also to the other gentleman. Thank you on that. very good experience. I must say, like outstanding experience I had with them. Like I said, they gave us vouchers, complimentary snacks and drinks, which on board, non-alcoholic drinks. But it was great. Good experience. So it made our journey even more pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely ear popping, but that's part of the journey.
Well, again, if anybody watches the video, they'll see that you actually had the McDonald's branded cups for the coffee.
Yeah. And on the other side, a WestJet on it, McDonald's. Yeah, it actually was really good.
Kind of neat that they do that.
You could choose between like pretzels, or you could have cookies, and you could have juice, pop, coffee. You could have each of them if you wanted to. I tried to be as selective as much as I could, because I don't want to be drinking unlimited beverages. There's be constantly getting up, using the washroom, right? But it was good, and I didn't want to take advantage of the situation. It was complimentary, but I just had what I wanted to, and other times I just I'm good. Getting back to the Ottawa part, like I mentioned to our viewers and listeners. It was great. Like I said, I've never been to Ottawa, Ontario before. I'm looking forward to whenever that journey may be again. We're going with Jeff from Disability Action of Canada and Sonjia to do our advocacy, awareness, bringing people's incomes up to a livable income, no less than poverty level financial support for all disabled Canadians across Canada, becoming united in our own advocacy the best way we can. Everyone has different angles on their own advocacy and what their expertise are. Everyone who knows my advocacy, it's always about the rent, making sure people have enough money for their rent and their basic essentials. I like to see the rent portion eliminated for any provinces that do have that two-tiered system. They call it shelter allowance, maximum shelter allowance. I believe it's Ontario and BC that actually have that in place. There might be some other provinces that I'm not well aware of. If there is, please leave us a message in the comments section regarding that, because I'd like to talk to the premiers on that, or the ones who make these decisions. Maybe they're ministers who can actually change that in your regulations and get rid of that. Because the way I look at it, when you're paying market rent, your check is your check. At the end of the day, you pay your rent, and what you have left is, if you have anything left, which is not enough right now. And that's why we need to basically get our incomes up to a level so that there is enough to cover all your basic essentials, plus your disability supports of your devices that you need in life to thrive and do the best you can, and be part of communities. Putting money back into communities to help small businesses benefit. Corporations, they're always going to do good. No problem for them. But small businesses, they rely on community support. And so having enough money to actually support them, rather than corporations like your corporate landlords and all the corporations, they're like I say, they're going to do okay. But I always look at it as people should be able to live in the kind of housing, the sector that they want to live in. Market housing, as we all know, is in the private sector. And people who live in that sector, they may like the community that they're in. They may like their neighbors. I could differ with my neighbors. I put my life through a living hell, but the rents are so high right now. So looking at moving to another place, it scares me, because there's no guarantee right now of the provinces actually committing to bringing the rates up to an amount that you can afford to rent somewhere else. So then you get stuck in precarious housing situations. And I learned that in Ottawa, talking to some of the individuals there, and that's what I cherish. Part of our advocacy is knowing that Sonjia and myself and Jeff, we're not alone on that. Like, we're not alone, and any other person who's going through the same situation.
Yeah, all provinces have their own thing, right? And what I was going to say is one of the things I'm looking forward to, hopefully very soon, is that we have the conservative, the BC Conservatives here, and they've got a pretty healthy. I guess it's a minority. But they have a very healthy minority. They missed the majority by two votes basically. And so I'll be interested to see. I've been sending out emails to a couple of people in the legislature there, and I'll be interested to get them on and have them talk about what they think is the solution for legislated poverty in BC.
It would be very interesting to hear their angle on their what solutions do they have going forward, and that goes with any member of their legislative assembly in each province. What are your plans? What are your plans in bringing people to a livable income in each province? And that goes with BC, the same thing. Like, we always hear these slogans of baby steps, or there's more to do, or kick the can down the road. I want to know, like, what are you going to do now to put an end to poverty, like legislated poverty? Nobody should have to choose between paying food and putting a roof over their head. Or basically paying your bills. You shouldn't have to choose either one. You should be able to have enough for everything, right?
Well, and again, the thing that really gets me is I hear this all the time. It's not discrimination, Neil. It's only unfair. Well, it's a very fine line between unfairness and discrimination. Let me tell you, because we've talked about this all the time. Some people with disabilities get rent subsidies and some don't. And even if you just take the disability part out of the equation, we know that people like that are elderly, they get their SAFERs, senior supplement, they get their SAFERs rent subsidy. So we know that there's programs out there, but the idea that the government just says, well, it's okay if only 10 to 15% get the subsidy and the other 85%, well, who cares? That's not good enough. I'm sorry, and like I said, it's a very fine line between saying something is unfair and being discriminatory, because you're deliberately saying, yes, we're only providing 12% or whatever it is, subsidies to 12% of the disabled population, and who cares about it? So it's their policy, and yes, you can say it's unfair. You can walk it back and be polite and say it's unfair. But the reality is you're being very discriminatory, because you're deliberately targeting the bulk of people with disabilities. You're saying, the bulk of people with disabilities don't get the support. We're only going to hand out like some support to like 15% maybe. And I'm sorry, again, that's not good enough.
Well, it's pitting seniors against seniors, people with disabilities against disabilities, like have and have nots. Like, oh, you choose to have subsidized housing, but you choose to pay market rent. Well, hey, now you don't have to be that way, right? You can go and have subsidized housing too, but you can go on a 20-year waiting list, but it's all based on priorities. But no, I just want enough money to basically pay my bills and buy food and pay my rent. Unfortunately, it gets to a point where people won't be able to pay their rent. And then what? You're supposed to be then on the verge of homelessness. Well, then the government says, oh, well, now you qualify to go on a waiting list to get into subsidized housing. Well, at the end, housing is housing. Just give people enough money so they can live. And I heard about that when I was in Ottawa, is that people just say the same thing. They just want enough money to basically pay their rent where they live. They don't want to have to be on the verge of homelessness so they can go and live in subsidized housing.
Well,
I mean, is it supposed to be like really good housing? I mean, compared to market housing?
I hate how the government, uh, you know, the what do you want to call it, the way they go about their action plan is to be reactive instead of proactive. Like let's fix it when we have a confirmed homelessness issue where a person's gonna die because they have no home. That we'll give them support then, but like somebody like me or somebody like you that just wants a decent place to live, and you're having issues with your upstairs, and like I should have more than enough, but because I get a clawback, because the government says, well, it's not unfair, Neil, or it's not discrimination, Neil, it's only unfair, all this kind of crap that goes on.
Yeah, because here's an example, like I've mentioned before on the podcast. It's like the owners basically say, well, I'm sorry that you both are having to go through all this noise and just complete disrespect from your tenants who live above you. But hey, we've got a solution though. We can move you to another unit in the building on the top floor of the building, so that you won't hear anybody stomping around and dropping heavy things above you on your ceiling, which is their floor. But that's the solution. But you get to pay more money. You get to pay what the actual going price of that vacant unit will be once it becomes vacant. Or you can move into one of our other buildings and pay even more money. I said, well, did the government give us a rate increase? I don't know. So you're going to make more money off of our unit once we move out. You're going to jack up the rent on the other unit. Like, wow. But we're going to be looking at another place and see what happens out of that. I don't know. And see if I can work with them on the rent. I don't know. So maybe barter with them a little bit. I don't know. It's in the renters market now. It's because a lot of people can't afford the market rents, how high they are. So I think it's going to come to a point where the tenants are going to start calling the shots and saying, "Hey, I can rent this. Do you want to rent to me for this?"
Well, you're already seeing that a little bit, right? I've been seeing that on the news. There's been a couple of landlords saying that I can't rent this place anymore because people can't afford it.
Well, they're sitting vacant for months, many months on end, and they're getting desperate to rent them out. And so that tells me it's pure greed from the corporate landlords on their behalf, because they want their investors and their stakeholders to have a profit level going forward. Now, housing never used to be treated as a commodity. It never was. It just turned into like monopoly, basically. And that's what I heard from when I was in Ottawa, and a lot of the stories that people had gone through. And it's so comparison to what we go through in BC. There's so much changes that need to happen, and starting with being proactive, like you mentioned, Neil. But proactive is looking at what the problem is. How can we prevent the problem going forward? How do we fix the current problem? And one of our guests that we had on, Cheryl Hardcastle, had said, "What are you going to do now? Like in the now moment now, like what is the current government regarding on which government is in power across our country? Is it provincial? Like, is it NDP, Liberal Party, Conservative Party, Green Party? I mean, it doesn't matter. Like whichever party, the Purple Party, the I don't know, the Auburn Party. I can keep making a mock of making fun of whichever party it is, but I don't, because I want them to work together. I want them to realize that it's nonpartisan. Like, it's a nonpartisan issue. It's listening to lived experience stories of what people go through, and how do we work with you, and how do you work with us to actually change the system. There's a lot of problems happening also in BC with under the ministry right now. We'll talk more about that on another show for sure. Because there's an ongoing it's heartbreaking. That's all I can say.
The CLBC
The
stuff.
CLBC, yeah, and it's terrible. It's terrible on what's happening with that.
I want to get Tamara Taggart back on. I have reached out to her, so we'll see if she gets back about that.
I would love to have Tamara Taggart come on, and because she's been through like a lot of this journey, following that whole story, what's been going on, and Tamara, like I echo a lot what you say on my podcast.
She's a little bulldog. I love her.
She's
she's a little bulldog. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, she says how it is. I mean, she holds the government to account, but the government's just kicking and screaming, right? They don't want to deal with it, and that goes with every premier across Canada, and the prime minister, and like, there's so many things that can be changed. Mm-hmm. It's like the Canada Disability Benefit. We talked about that briefly in Ottawa, and again, it echoes in my mind what I project out on the podcast. I don't read from a script, everybody. I just say how it is on top of my head. Always have, always will.
Well, like getting back to the CLBC thing. I mean, the CLBC people that have gone on camera have said, well, the system is good the way it is, and other people have said, well, obviously not, because it's not really working, and it should be returned back to government hands, because it had better oversight then. We've been talking about oversight when it comes to city governments too, how the province used to have oversight of the city governments, but like I was just thinking, like, so much of that is having the proper oversight and for a government to be willing to kind of take a loss on things a little bit. Like if you think about it, like our ferry system was always all government run, and then we had we had the BC Transit was all government run. There was so many things that was like 100% government run, and I think it's not like there's any easy solutions, but it goes to the housing too. Like the government has to realize, we have to be willing to take a loss, and be willing to take full ownership of the housing file. And say, you know what, we're just going to build a crap load of houses for X amount of money, and be willing to take 100% control of it, because right now it's all going to private investors, and these private investors aren't wanting to build affordable housing, because it's like they're not making any money off of it. That's what happened with David Eby, his new BC builds. He was saying, I'm going to build all these affordable housing. Well, how many actually turned out to be affordable? It was like almost none, because all of the investors said, well, we're not going to make any money off of this. So sorry, too bad. There's like affordable to us is $4,000 a month. You know, and I mean, that's what happens when government decides they're going to walk back and not have any ownership of anything anymore. That's what happens. You get everything out of control, because, if you go back to, 70s, 80s, and early 90s, we did have a good housing stock of the co-ops and all that kind of, I mean, and I know things always get more expensive, it's true, but I mean, I remember going to university, like UBC, and I had a lot of friends that would either live on campus or really close to campus, and they were getting rents that were like, maybe $600 a month, and that was like, I realize I'm going back to like the early 90s. So I mean, that's going back a ways, but still, the fact that you could get like a really nice place anywhere from like $400 to $600,
Well, now you look at it. I mean, I can go back as far as like say, say 2015, just as an example. 800 $800 for a 2-bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's now in 2025, that same place, the same place is now $2,800.
Yeah.
So a PWD, their rent portion back then was $375. So one person, you could almost rent. So it'd be $750. So 2 PWD could rent that place, but then you just have to top up, each by $25. You could actually rent that place out. Now, one PWD, a whole check wouldn't even cover that whole rent.
That's a lot of inflation in less than 10 years.
That's what I mean. The rents have over doubled. Like, I was talking to an individual who actually lives in the building that I live in, and he's grandfathered in, an older man, and his rent now is $974 is what his rent is. Mm-hmm. The same rent, if he moves out, his rent will be $1,750.
Yeah.
Okay, and the management would be he said they'll be cracking open the champagne. They'd be more than happy to have him move out. Mm-hmm. But some of their other properties, I mean, a lot of management companies, their prices are different. A lot of places the rents are way, way higher, over 2,000. And there's something wrong there. Like these rent prices have over doubled, in some places tripled in prices. And basically the incomes have not kept up with the pace of these market rents. Something has to give. I don't know what the answer is going to be, but
like I said, there's no real easy solution. I never pretend to know all the solutions.
Neither.
I don't. But it just bugs me because before government was more involved in the housing file, we have to say in partnership with the federal government as well, of course. It was the feds that were building a lot of the housing too. Well, now everybody's just kind of abandoned it and said, well, if we're not making any money off of it, we don't want anything to do with it, and you can't have that. You can't have that attitude because it's just going to leave people further and further and further behind.
Well, when I was talking to, there was one lady in Ottawa at the Parliament Hill who came up to the rally and joined us and had a lot of discussions. A lot of them stuck around there too, and other ones were coming and going. And I told them what the rent in where we are in the building. Like, oh wow, that is cheap. That's cheap. I said, oh yeah, but you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. Like the place should not be renting more than $500-$600 for this place right now. They just don't want to do any fix ups. They just want the place to be run as an asset for their investors, right? I mean, the way I look at it, if you want to run a business in the province, whatever province it is, you need to keep up with the standard of keeping a place kept, the preventive of maintenance. You need to kind of keep going and fixing things up, right? You can't just have it there and say, no, I've got a business, I don't want to put money into it. If you're collecting the money each month that goes up based on inflation, that money should be going back in to fixing the place up, right? You can't just profit and go, I'm going to use it for a rainy day fund and go away on a holiday. That doesn't work that way. So unfortunately, when you have a business license, well, it's there for a reason, right? So that kind of goes with corporations where I don't have a solution either, Neil, but like for housing. But the way I look at it is that if they want to run a business, they need to follow guidelines. And I think maybe the provinces need to step in and start kind of looking at each municipality and saying, okay, so what are you doing for your business? How are you keeping up with your building? And maybe having some kind of a officer coming in and maybe inspecting the buildings every so often. Some people may say, well, that's going to cost a lot of money to do that. Well, I mean, randomly going through and saying we're going to do an inspection and we're going to keep up and we're going to take a look here, and you're running a business. Well, you need to now keep up with that. That's like saying a fast food restaurant running in the province, and they're not keeping up to a standard. Well, if they don't keep up to a standard, they're going to be shut down. Even a family business, like not even a fast food restaurant.
Well,
they're gonna be
let's remember, Brent. I mean, again, this is a BC example for here because
yeah.
that's what we're aware of. But we had that heat dome here in 2021.
Oh my gosh,
and
yes.
and
Unbearable.
it was the last kind of full year that that John Horgan was the premier here, and we had all those deaths, particularly in the SROs, the single resident occupancy places.
Yeah, single room occupancy.
Oh, sorry, single room occupancy. Yeah, and none of these places had any kind of air conditioning, and so all these people died.
Yeah,
and again, bless John Horgan, and he must have been having a bad day. But I remember because I was listening. He was on the news. And they asked him about all these people that died, and he's like, well, that's what happens when you get old. That was his comment. And I was thinking, wow, John, like you got to come up with something better than that, because the real reason why somebody died is because there was no cooling in those places, and people baked to death. They cooked to death because, like you just said, those places weren't properly maintained.
Yeah, and they said the city in Vancouver, just for instance, the mayor had gone in and surveyed what was going on in those SROs, and walked in, not even 5 minutes, couldn't stay in there. It was just unbearable, the amount of heat that people had to live through, and the actual conditions of the place too. Again, when we were in Ottawa, we stayed at an Airbnb, and that it reminded me right away as soon as we got into the place. I mean, the picture showed the place was like really great. It was wonderful. We got in, and it was Jeff had punched in a code. It's a code on the door. That's how you get in. There's no key. The code in the door, and we got dropped off there, and that's where we went. And it's like, oh, okay, this is the place. Oh, okay. So we got in. Well, unload all your stuff. There was 3 bedrooms upstairs. Great. We get up there, and I tell you, it reminded me, first thing that came to my mind, Neil, was exactly what we just talked about. The heat dome. The heat's just pumping through these vents, and there's no fans. There's no thermostat on the wall upstairs, so you can't adjust the heat. It was like a sauna. I mean, literally, you could have a shower and hang up your towel. It's dry in like no time at all. It was terrible. I mean, there was a thermostat downstairs, and that's great, but I mean, it was cooler, but the heat was just pumping upstairs, windows wide open upstairs, and it was like minus 24, I think, overnight.
Wow.
Minus 24. You couldn't feel the cold air coming in.
Wow.
Yeah. And so there was no way of adjusting any temperature upstairs. We all looked for any kind of thermostat, nowhere to be found. You couldn't even shut off these vents in the rooms. Like there's no valve to shut it off. It was just pumping through all this heat.
Yeah.
And they had heaters upstairs also, I guess, in case anyone wanted extra heat or something. Like, well, are you kidding me? Yeah. So that was our experience. I mean, the only thing good about the place was the shower. The shower was great. That was it. Yeah. So that was our experience. So with that, but I get it. Like I get it, because Ottawa gets extremely cold. I mean, we went there and we experienced a mild winter. Accordingly to some of the locals, they said, yeah, it's cold, but they said it gets a lot colder here than this. Like, really? Oh yeah, this is definitely cold. And the wind chill. Wind started. Well, I won't mention wind chill because some people will look at it and say, well, no, it's just it's their view on how the wind will make you feel. Will make you feel a lot colder. So I'm always careful on how I word that. I just say it just made it feel a lot colder when the wind blows. Let's put it that way. It's minus 24. It felt like minus 31. But however, the temperature, I was told, it could get up to like minus 60 with how it will feel. I mean, or like into like minus 30s. When we left, We were actually at Ottawa, and then we got to Calgary. When we got to Calgary Airport, I looked at the weather forecast, and it was, I guess they were updating it. The temperature was changing there, and Sonjia brought to my attention there's a winter storm watch that was issued for Ottawa, snow squalls.
Oh, wow.
And we saw this weather forecast before we left, and we thought, oh no, like, I hope we're not going to be delayed, because there was like a lot of snow that was going to be coming. And we actually timed it up where we got out of there. We left at 6:15 in the morning on the flight out of there. And this weather forecast was supposed to arrive by 8 o'clock, according to the weather app.
Oh, wow.
Things got pushed a little bit forward, but they got nailed. Like they got nailed in different areas, but I don't know if it was the area that we were in. I don't know, but I was told it gets really, really cold. So we timed it up well on that. I'm glad, because it was already cold enough for us. And we went into the gallery. They called it the gallery. Anyone who's familiar with the area, I didn't even know where that was. Jeff already knew where that was. So we went into the gallery, and then you have to go through security again. Of course, we've gone through security enough when we got to the airport. So you had to take out all your stuff off again and throw all your stuff in. And we had gone looked around at some little trinkets here and there of. It was kind of neat, actually. Just different artifacts for Ottawa, and just to kind of get warmed up. And one of the security people working there in the gallery said that she had lived out in Nova Scotia and spent some time out in Newfoundland as she grew up. And I said, "Oh, really?" She said, "How is it out there?" She says, "Oh, it's cold." She says, "Where are you guys from?" I said, "Oh, British Columbia." Yeah, okay, but where in British Columbia? Because I've gone to British Columbia too, and British Columbia is different terrain on how cold it gets in certain areas. I said, "That's right." So she seemed to know her geography extremely well. She said that her brother lives in British Columbia and lives up in the Peace River region. Okay. I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Oh, okay. So up in Fort St. John area?"
Dan Davies.
Yeah, up in Fort St. John. She goes, "Yeah, up in Fort St. John." She goes, "Now that is cold." I said, "Oh, yeah, I haven't been up there myself." But she goes, "Oh, well, Ottawa can get that way." Really? Oh, yeah, like it can get like that. And I said, "Oh, now, have you ever been to Newfoundland or Nova Scotia?" I said, "Not yet." Okay. You probably want to go there, but same thing, you want to bundle up. It gets very wicked, at times.
I would love to go to Nova Scotia and all the way to the East Coast. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's one that's on my bucket list. I just don't know when. But again, she said, dress how you would dress in Victoria.
We need to get a sponsor. We need to get Tim Hortons or whoever, like Tim Hortons, who pay for our tickets to go all the way across to the other side.
Yeah, and we can, we advocate for change, and at the same time promote their product. I mean, whatever company is out there that would love to, promote us, basically on advertising your product or your service. I mean, reach out to us, and in exchange, you'll get to see our journey as we travel across our beautiful country, and promote your product and service. And also, we can now also advocate for change, so that people will have more money in their pocket and they can buy your product and service too.
And if it was Tim Hortons, they can buy more donuts now.
Exactly. Now everybody across the country can now buy your product and service. Exactly. And what I always say, what goes around comes around. But the one security agent had said, just dress how you would dress in Victoria. I go, like anywhere on the South Coast. I said, yeah, because it just goes right through you. Like once you're cold, it goes right through you. And in Ottawa, it's a dry cold. So you're dressed warm. You got a winter jacket on. You don't feel that cold. I did not feel the cold. Only time I just felt it on my cheeks and, my face a little bit. And definitely on the hands when I was trying to wear my gloves all I can. And the toes. The toes definitely felt cold. And I had winter socks on too. And my toes were crunched up in my winter boots, but I'm glad I did, because if I didn't, oh man, I wouldn't got frostbite on my toes, but they were darn cold. I mean, Sonjia was saying that same thing. She's, my toes are cold, they're feeling numb. So I knew then, and Jeff was saying he was getting cold, and I was getting cold. So we went into the gallery, warmed up, came back out, and continued our advocacy, holding the banner up. It was great. It was great when the wind wasn't there, but as soon as that wind picked up, you could see we were holding the banner. It was going flap, flap, flap. Yeah, and that was the wind picking up. And the other part, I'm sure that the viewers probably thought was kind of funny, which I thought was actually kind of neat too. Maybe it was just a me of a not a little blooper, but holding the little microphone. And I'm like, so I'm like interviewing the one gentleman there with the little tiny little microphone.
It reminded me of Rick Mercer, you know.
Yeah, but the sound quality was really good, and I wasn't sure how that would work. It was windy out at the time when I was doing that, and I tell you, I was like, oh man, this wind is just blasting against my face. I'm going, and I'm trying not to wince at the time when I'm interviewing. I'm going, oh man, this is cold, like. And it was a great interview. Jeff had an interview also with a local media when we were there at a coffee shop. So stay tuned on any kind of footage that comes out of that. If
hopefully we can get Jeff on and he can talk more about that, because we did want to get him on, and it's just like I said, we just had his coffee issue, tummy problems, but
so last night, as soon as we got back, I said to Sonjia, I said, I don't know about you. I said, I'm getting really tired, and she was already bagged out herself, and our neighbors upstairs were making a lot of noise. I heard them during the nighttime, just a few times, but I'm sure they made a lot more noise. As soon as I hit that pillow, boom, I was out. I know I messaged you last night. I said, I'm going to bed, and you're like, yeah, you must be tired. And, it literally like 10 minutes, after I sent that message, I hit the pillow, boom, I was out. Yeah, and I knew
I get that way too. Yeah.
I knew I was just going to be crashing, right? And I know they made a lot of noise upstairs, but I was just like, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. Anyway, we probably should punch out Brent. But,
But I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in today, and I want to thank all the advocates, disability advocates, that we ran into in Ottawa, Ontario, who basically came up to the Parliament Hill and joined with us as solidarity, and also as disabled Canadians, and citizens and residents of the community there, and shared their lived experience stories with us. We plan on doing the rally again. We're going to network even more.
Maybe in the summer next time.
Well, yeah, it might even be before then. I know it's going to be, I do know that it will be when Parliament is sitting. I do know that for a fact. I just don't know exactly when, because Jeff has to do more fundraising again for the next event. So stay tuned on advertising when he does do that. I'll be intervening with him and finding out where things are at. I did hear from some of the other advocates in the area that there's organizations that they want us to connect in with and bring in more people. So it'll be great, and having more people joining us, local advocacy groups. And I'm just wondering why the other advocacy groups that we did reach out to that didn't show up. It's unfortunate.
Well, it could have just been the cold weather.
It might have been, but the next time will be even better, and I look forward to them joining in with us. And anyone in the area, definitely, if you have reached out to me regarding that, reach out to me again, and I'll stay in contact with you if you want to join in with us next time when we go out to Ottawa. I'd be more than happy to have you join in. So
and again, apologies for not being able to track the live chat. It was working on my phone for a while, and it stopped working on my phone too. So I don't know. I have some issues with Google. It doesn't like me now for some reason. So I wasn't able to follow the chat really at all today. So apologies for that. Hopefully I'll get the gremlins worked out for the next show. But so that's why I wasn't able to be as active as I usually am in the chat there.
You can send in your comments after the show's done.
Yeah, after the show, people can just post comments, after we post the video out. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then we can kind of look through and then talk more about that on another segment. Again, it was a great journey as an overview. Sonjia had a good time. Sonjia?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a great time. I had a great time. Good experience. Jeff had a wonderful time. Except the coffee incident that he had gone through, and so it was embarrassing. He said, but yeah, Jeff, it happens. Just remind me of a Greyhound trip I did.
We've all been there.
Jeff, imagine being on a Greyhound and going through that and isolating yourself in the washroom, and everybody gets on the bus. It's okay, you can come out now. Yeah. I'm like, so yeah, it's one of those things, but it's part of the adventure. It's part of the. That would have been a good segment for another journey. But but thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Stay tuned for the next podcast. And if you would love to be a guest, like always reach out to Neil, and we'll do our best to get you scheduled in. If you are a leader of a party that would love to come on, definitely. I'm
doing my best to go after the VIPs this year, Brent. You know that.
And I know with Ontario having a provincial election coming up later this month, definitely if you would like the opportunity to come on to the podcast and let us know what your plans are, plans are for your party about ending legislated poverty in your province, especially in Ontario. I know there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts, but I want to know what your plans are of ending legislated poverty. I've heard discussions about doubling ODSP. Is that going to solve the problem? Is that going to pay for market rent? When does that kick in? Does that kick in after the election? Or is it going to be done in phases, or is it going to be done at once? I'd say do it at once. I mean, and legislated poverty.
It's going to be done right at the end of year 4, and then they're gonna say, you know what? Like, if you vote us in again. Yeah. You vote us in again, then we'll commit to doing our best to get it in. Yeah, like a little carrot dough trick, right? So they'll just basically sit on their hands for 4 years.
Yeah. We've heard that line before. But thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. And
cheers.
Thanks.